children's clothing line, her health rapidly declined. The commercial is insane. And here's where it gets a little Illuminati? People didn't know what to make of this. This looks very similar to the Illuminati eye, and why is it on her hand?
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? You guys know what we like to do here, man. We break down scary and creepy videos that's gonna make us question everything. Let's do what we do best, seekers. Say it with me, y'all. Seek the truth.
Her husband, a chiropractor, was poisoning her the entire time, and all for her insurance money. Hannah Mann began feeling extremely sick, nauseous, and dizzy for months until she decided to finally go to the hospital. After tests were done, doctors found that she had large amounts of lead in her system, approximately 8 times higher than the safe limit. Immediately, they knew that she was being poisoned. They then find out her husband, Brian, was giving Hannah supplements that were laced with lead. And get this, he got this lead from the clinic he worked at. So earlier that year, he remodeled the X-ray room at his office and removed the old walls, which were lined with sheets of lead to block radiation in the X-ray room. He took this lead, crushed it into powder, and put them into capsules and told his wife they were immune supplements. The amount of work this man did, instead of just divorcing his wife, I will never understand. Hannah was so sick, they had to temporarily paralyze her because any slight movement could have dangerously tipped off the pressure to her brain. They then find out that Brian took out multiple life insurance policies on his wife of over $1 million just days before she was rushed to the hospital. It gets even worse because during sentencing, he was nearly laughing and the judge sentenced him to life in prison. The judge was so disturbed from this case and Brian's lack of empathy that he asked that when he's up for parole, he wants to personally be there to testify against him.
I am so concerned for this man on TikTok. It's really giving, like, how far would you go just for a video? He hangs out with these, like, random indigenous tribes, and apparently these are the guardians of the tribe that he was hanging out with. And he calls this tribe the scariest tribe in the country in the video. Like, is he not concerned for his safety? Not that the tribe itself is, like, necessarily dangerous, but, like, these people don't speak the same language as him. They don't know what he's doing, really. Like, he's making TikToks, but like they don't have like technology and stuff in their tribe. Like they don't really know what's going on. And it seems that his account is like dedicated to making videos like this. Like he's been with many different tribes. And it's like, do they even understand what like the phone is? I just have so many questions. And then in one of his videos, he was like, I'm hanging out with like these cannibals. And I'm just like, you are not a part of their tribe. Like that could be really dangerous. Not that these people are necessarily dangerous. They seem really sweet, like letting him in. You just don't know because you can't understand them. You're speaking a different language. Come over here for more content. It really helps when you interact.
Creepy
I have to
Unsolved
check that
Mysteries
out.
Part 1. In 1959, 9 ski hikers went on a trip in the Ural Mountains. It was located in Russia, and on their last night, they set up camp and had dinner. But that night, when they went to bed, they were never found again. They had sent the rescue team, and when they finally found the group's tent, it was ripped open from the inside with footprints everywhere. Some of the footprints were boots, socks, and bare feet, which is weird in cold weather. They followed the tracks and found 2 bodies, which were just completely naked in their underwear. Over the next couple of months, they found the rest of the 7 bodies. One body had brutal force to the head like it was beaten. Some even had chest fractures. They said the injuries to those bodies were equivalent to people who got into car crashes. One body was even missing its tongue, eyes, and lips, while another body had strange high radiation on its clothes. Was it aliens? A science experiment gone wrong? A crazy tribe attack? It's still a mystery to this day. What do you think? Comment below. And like this video if you want a part 2.
This is the story of Ghost Boy, the man who was trapped in his own body for 12 years. Martin Pistorius was a 12-year-old boy growing up in South Africa when he went home sick from school one day. But sadly, Martin never got better. His body weakened, he lost control of his muscles, and he was left unable to communicate. Doctors said that he had a neurodegenerative disease and told his parents that he was unaware of the world around him. But that was completely wrong. He said that for over a decade he was awake, but no one noticed. He was constantly abused by his caretakers, sexually, physically, and mentally, and was even told by his own mother that she wished that he was dead. This all changed when one day a caregiver realized that Martin was actively trying to communicate with her and suggested to his parents that they have him retested. And his parents were absolutely shocked by the results of the test.
Can't be treating people any type of way. They thought, man, he didn't know what was going on. He was aware of everything around him, bro. Where is he at? late at night. Yeah, it's for trouble, bro. Albert Einstein, what do you do? Alright, it's weird, bro. People.
Myths you still believe about Canada. Canadians see snow year-round. Well, the truth is that though the winters can be harsh, most of the country's population experiences summers that can make a Californian sweat. Most Canadians live near the Canada-US border and thus experience similar weather to what you'd expect in places like Boston or New York. Toronto is the capital of Canada. Well, Toronto does have the largest population and is probably the most famous Canadian city, but it's actually Ottawa, another Ontario city that's the capital. As the center of political power, Queen Victoria chose Ottawa to be Canada's capital on December 31st, 1857. It was determined that with its location being on the border between Canada East and Canada West, its excellent defensive position and its access to two different rivers to cross the country in either direction, Ottawa was the perfect city for the title.
Weird things
Never knew
Americans do that other countries don't understand. Leading the pack we have using America or Americans to describe anything about ourselves, like I just did. If you grew up in the US, you would assume that using America or the United States are interchangeable. The rest of the world does not agree. We aren't the only America out there because there's a lot more to North America than us. There's also South America, and that's why everybody else refers to us as the States. Next up, we have tipping our servers. Not tipping your server in the US is often frowned upon, but in other countries, it's not expected and sometimes considered rude. That's probably because in the US, we do not pay our servers a livable wage. Then we have that in the US, we put a ridiculous amount of ice in our drinks. When you visit Europe, a lot of restaurants don't even use that much ice, and you might not even get it unless you ask for it. In my opinion, ice just takes up way too much space. I want more alcohol. Another one is that in the US, if you want a degree, you're going to have to deal with crippling student debt. A lot of other countries offer free college educations. And lastly, in the US, vacation time is very scarce. 6 weeks paid is standard.
Damn, 6 weeks? You know that's nowhere in the US.
Have you ever heard of a computer game that literally lets someone to a dead body in the woods? It's called Pale Luna, and if it's real, it might be the creepiest game ever made. In the 1980s, a super obscure game started floating around Northern California. It was a basic text adventure game. The game starts with a simple text on the screen that says, Pale Luna smiles wide. There are ropes, a shovel, and a flashlight. But it is important to note that most of the versions of these games were glitchy and unplayable. That is, except for one. There was a kid, never named, that managed to get further than anyone else. The screen glitches actually started showing GPS coordinates, and instead of quitting the game, he decided to write them down. Just like the game instructed, he grabbed a rope and a shovel. And he actually likes hiking in the woods using the exact coordinates that the game gave him. He arrives, he ends up digging for hours, until finally he hits something. Discovers a garbage bag, and inside of that bag there is a human skull. It is real and it is decomposing. Authorities never found out who the victim was or who made the game, and since that incident there has been no full copy of Pale Luna to ever be found again. Was it an ARG? Was it just like an urban legend? Or was it a digital confession by a serial killer? Either way, someone knew that grave was there and they buried that secret inside of a computer game. Would you have kept playing? Come over here to hear me read from the victim of a serial killer's diary.
This is a ghost story that actually happened to one of you guys. So Jenny grew up in an old country farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And in that house, there was this spooky looking vent that went straight up to a room that no one in the house used. So one day, when Jenny's around 4 years old, she starts hearing a man's voice coming from the vent calling to her. She doesn't know any better, so she starts talking back to the voice who's asking her questions about herself. But here's the crazy thing. And Jenny claims that the voice coming from the vent sounded exactly like his. Jenny asks the man where he is, and he says that he's in a room that she can't see. So she runs up to the abandoned room, but there's no one inside. Is this supernatural, or was there really a grown man upstairs talking to a child? We talk about this and another ghost story on the Haunted Houses episode of my podcast.
Could be a
You
squatter.
shouldn't go through life any longer without knowing this. There was a 9-foot great white shark back in 2003 that was tagged by scientists. Just a couple of months after this, the tag was found by a beach 2.5 miles from where the shark was originally tagged. When they pulled the data from the tag, it showed that the great white abruptly dove to depths of 2,000 feet and lower, which means something else swallowed that 9-foot shark whole and went down to the bottom of the ocean. There was a man who hired his neighbor to impregnate his wife and then sued him after 72 failed attempts. He paid $2,500 for his neighbor. Okay. Tom Cruise has been blacklisted from buying a Bugatti. He's actually apparently been banned since 2006 because on the red carpet, he struggled to open the passenger side door in front of cameras, and that moment was everywhere. So now he's on a do not sell list for the entire company. That's kind of hilarious. Chris Hansen was on a podcast a couple of months ago and was asked the question, have you ever caught a female predator? And he said, never.
Never? Okay. Pros picked that the bathroom as the hiding space. You would not make it if it was a horror movie, bro. Plain and simple.
What is a disturbing fact you wish you could unlearn?
I'm giving y'all a chance to scroll, especially if you have kids, especially if you have a baby. Oh wait, you still here? Alright man, don't blame me, this is on you. If there's one animal you should be afraid of in this world, it's not lions, tigers, bears, sharks, it's none of that. It's actually the one that looks the most like us. I don't care who you think you are, a chimp will really tear your arm off and beat you over the head with it. And chimps will actively hunt other animals like bush babies and red colobus monkeys. We've even seen them murk small antelope and warthogs. But the disturbing part isn't that they hunt monkeys and eat them. This is your last chance, you can still scroll. Because the thing is that apparently chimps can't tell the difference between the monkeys they hunt and human babies. Or they can and they just don't care. There have been cases of gangs of chimpanzees snatching, murking, and eating human children. In 2002 in Gombe National Park in Tanzania, a 14-month-old baby was kidnapped by an adult male chimp. You can probably guess what went down, but the result was one less baby and one partially fed chimp. Partially because the chimp started eating, but apparently got bored and left the past tense body for researchers to find. Why? Yeah, that's the thing with psychopaths. There is no why. Moral of this video? Yeah, this picture hit a little different now, don't it?
This is the man who started the Palisades fire. Make sure you're following to stay in the loop. So this guy named Jonathan Renderkick has been detained and accused of starting the Palisades fire. In case you don't remember, the fire is responsible for ending 12 lives and destroying over 6,000 homes and buildings. So what allegedly happened was after Jonathan finished his shift as an Uber driver, he decided to go and start a fire. Now originally he fled the scene when he saw fire trucks headed towards his location, but then later returned to the same trail to watch the fire burn. Now as for why police think that Jonathan is the one who did it, he apparently lied about his location when the fire began, had some suspicious questions about fires to ChatGPT. He also acted very abnormally during interrogation. If Jonathan is convicted, he faces between 5 and 20 years in prison.
Right after
Probably
Sleepy
start
Dog
the fire.
released this demonic children's clothing line, her health rapidly declined. The commercial is insane. And here's where it gets a little Illuminati? People didn't know what to make of this. This looks very similar to the Illuminati eye, and why is it on her hand? Now here's some photos from the Instagram. Nothing else, these photos are for shock factor. Now you need to check out the insane commercial.
Our children, they are not really our children, as we are all just links in a never-ending chain that is life. For us, they are everything. But in reality, we are only a fraction of their universe. We miss the past. They dream of tomorrow. We may thrust them forward into the future, but the course will always be theirs to choose.
New Order.
I can't believe they called security. I mean, oh, come on, I'm Celine Dion. I'm not spending the night in jail.
Holy shit.
Oh, she with the jets.
Guys, relax, easy. Celine Dion.
Yeah, girl, and I'm Beyonce.
What are the odds that her health declines right when this brand comes out? And you know, these are all paid models, but you can see in the comments, people are clearly not having it. They're calling it evil, they're calling them worshiping the devil. And she never addressed any of this. It's like it never happened. Come over here for longer freaky videos.
Let me show you some maps that are...
Jeez, what do you guys think about a commercial? Was it like trying to symbolize something?
are going to change the way you see the world. This first map shows the median house price in the United States in the year 2000, and this second map shows the median house price in the U.S. in 2025. Where I grew up in California, $393,000 in the year 2000, that's almost $1 million in 2025. That's unfathomable to me. And in Florida, where I live now, $195,000 in the year 2000, and it's $412,000 now. This map shows the difference between how people say fireflies and lightning bugs, which I've never seen one in real life, so it doesn't matter to me. Shout out to Owl City Fireflies, though. This map shows how North Dakota and South Dakota have very eerily similar populations as North Manhattan and South Manhattan. Any colored area on this map is where at least 5% of the population of that area uses public transportation. Orange is 5 to 10%, where red is 10 to 20%, and over 30% is the dark red, which we have one area, obvious. I've never been to Australia and would never have known this, but apparently you can drive for 38 hours in the state of Western Australia and still be in the same state of Western Australia.
Damn, what the hell? We drive for 38 hours straight. Not me. Again, the bathroom, a cliche hiding place, bro. Pick a different spot.
Never do this inside your home. These simple mistakes could attract something, and once it enters, getting rid of it won't be easy. Let me explain. If you want to keep your home free from spirits and bad energy, never do these things. 1. Never use old clothes as cleaning rags. That torn, stained t-shirt you use to wipe surfaces, it's full of trapped negative energy. Cleaning with it spreads that energy all over your home. 2. Never talk to yourself alone in the house. It might seem harmless, but some believe it invites spirits into your space, making them think you're speaking to them. 3. Never look into a mirror between 3 and 4 a.m. However, if you do, you might see something unsettling, hallucinations, shadowy figures, or even eyes that aren't yours staring back. 4. Never leave dirty dishes overnight. They don't just attract pests. They're said to lure obsessive spirits that feed off stagnant energy. 5. Never invite just anyone into your home. Some people carry envy and bad energy, and once they step inside, they might leave something behind that lingers. 6. Never sleep with a chair facing your bed. Some say it acts as an invitation for spirits to sit and watch you sleep. Still think these are just superstitions? Or will you start paying attention before it's too late? Let me know in the comments.
This is never before seen footage showing some of the first migrants being removed from the UK and flown back to France under their new one-in, one-out deal. Keir Starmer announced in July essentially a migrant swap agreement with France. Under the scheme, the UK will detain and send back those arriving in the UK on small boats without having their asylum claims processed. And for every migrant sent to France, France will send an equal number back. But, crucially, France can only send the individuals back who have passed security checks and haven't tried to enter the UK illegally before. And now the footage you see here is from the second ever return flight which arrived in France earlier today. Now the government has revealed that since this treaty was agreed, the total number of those returned to France is 26, and the total number returned to the UK is 18. Compare that to the total number who have arrived in the UK illegally in the first 6 months of 2025. That number is 49,341, and 88% of those arrived on small boats. So despite the UK's Home Secretary promising that these flights are now ramping up, many question the impact this scheme could have considering the scale of the problem. And the thing is, the bar's not even that high, because the previous government's migrant removal scheme cost a whopping £700 million and saw a total of 4 people being removed to Rwanda before being scrapped by the new government. So the question is this an innovative scheme that could work, or just a waste of resources?
case
Tell me
was
down
solved
below.
nearly 50 years later thanks to DNA. On January 31st, 1977, 24-year-old Jeanette Ralston was leaving Lion's Den Bar in San Jose, California just before midnight with an unidentified man. The next morning, Jeanette's body was found in the back seat of her parked Volkswagen Beetle. She had a long-sleeved dress shirt tied around her neck, and an autopsy confirmed that she had been strangled and essayed. There was evidence that someone attempted to set the car on fire, but it failed. Unfortunately, despite the evidence being preserved since there was no fire, Jeanette's case went cold and remained that way for 47 years. There was DNA evidence found on the shirt and under Jeanette's fingernails, but over the years that led to no match. There was also a latent fingerprint left on a pack of Eve cigarettes in Jeanette's car, but once again, this never had a match. According to investigators, the evidence had sat idle in the case file for decades. But in 2018, there was an upgrade to the FBI's fingerprint search algorithm, which allowed for more accurate and expansive matches, and this ultimately reopened Jeanette's case. Deputy DA Rob Barker said that in 2024, they, quote, threw a Hail Mary by running all of the prints from the crime scene through the FBI database one last time. And that decision was pivotal for the case. In the summer of last year, the San Jose police fingerprint examiners notified investigators that they had a match. And now, 6 months later, investigators have arrested their perpetrator, Ohio man Willie Eugene Sims. 69-year-old Sims was arrested in Ohio and charged with the murder of Jeanette Ralston. Investigators learned that in 1978, Sims was actually convicted of assault with intent to commit murder in Monterey County, California, and he was sentenced to 2.5 months in prison. But unfortunately, he was released and moved out of the state before DNA was routinely collected and entered in the databases. So after the fingerprint match came in 2024, the Santa Clara County investigators and San Jose police traveled to Ohio to collect a DNA sample from Sims. And that DNA matched the material found under Jeanette's fingernails and on the shirt used to strangle her. Sims was extradited to San Jose, California, and last week he was arraigned on the murder charge at the Santa Clara County Hall of Justice. He is being held without bail and he has not yet entered a plea, and his next court date is set for August 12th. If he is convicted of Jeanette's murder, he faces 25 years to life in prison. And finally, after nearly 5 decades, Jeanette will hopefully be getting the justice she deserves. Rest in peace, Jeanette.
Scary Unsolved Mysteries. Let's go. In 1922, 2-year-old Pauline Picard disappeared from her family's home in France. The Picard family and over 150 of their neighbors went on a search party throughout the farm and the woods nearby to find their daughter, but there was no luck. After weeks of searching for Pauline with nothing found, the village eventually gave up and decided that she was gone, which is where the story takes a weird turn. After a month had passed since Pauline disappeared, police officers showed up at the Picard's house saying that they had found their daughter over 200 miles away, and they had a picture to prove it. After confirming that the photo of Pauline was real, the Picard family set off to go retrieve their daughter. Immediately after bringing Pauline home, the Picard family knew something was wrong with their daughter. She didn't even remember how to speak their own language, and she acted as if her family members were strangers. Despite Pauline acting weird, the Picard family believed that this was their daughter, until something horrifying was discovered. Like and follow for part 2.
I'm gonna guess she wasn't their daughter. That was a mistake.
You won't believe what this man did after he lost his wife. Winston House and Janet were an inseparable couple. Their family never heard them argue or fight and wondered what was their secret. They would always just smile and say it was nothing but sincere love for each other. They lived together for 30 years, but one day Janet died from heart failure. Winston became heartbroken and started to plant a tree every day. His family got concerned from this and thought he was going crazy. When all the trees finished growing, they finally saw what he was doing. Turns out this was Janet's favorite type of tree, and he hoped that she would see it from heaven.
Legend, bro. Planting
The
those
crazy
trees.
things that actors have done for their roles. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp wanted Jack Sparrow to have gold teeth for the entirety of the series. However, producers weren't able to CGI them in, so they told Depp it probably wouldn't be realistic for the movies. Instead of giving up, Depp decided to have a dentist implant gold teeth in his mouth for the entirety of the filming to make it as realistic and pirate-like as possible.
Yeah, I went to the dentist and they found it.
In Black Mass, Depp needed a ton of prosthetics to look like the real-life man he was portraying. It was so many prosthetics, in fact, that it took an entire 22 hours just to add everything to his body, and that was just so he could start filming.
I don't know how some of those actors do it.
This might be one of the most terrifying stories you will ever hear. There was a girl who was very good at dancing, and her mom was extremely proud of her and had big plans for her future. But those plans were shattered when her daughter got diagnosed with terminal cancer and had less than a year to live. As the months went by, the girl's condition began to worsen and worsen. She was unable to walk or even stand up and spent all of her time lying in bed. One night, the mom was downstairs watching TV when she suddenly heard thumping noises coming from her daughter's room. She ran up the stairs as fast as she could and opened the door. She was shocked to see her daughter out of bed moving around. The girl was jumping and dancing around the room as if she was healthy again. The mom then grabbed her camera and took pictures until it was out of film. When the girl finished dancing, the mother looked at her face and her eyes were in the back of her head and she was very pale. The mother then took her to the hospital and she was pronounced dead. She was devastated. After the funeral, the mother was looking through the photos and suddenly began shaking and dropped the photos. In the pictures, there is a ghostly hand holding the girl by the head, forcing her dead body to dance.
So what was it with the entity or something? Okay, let's see if we found a better hotspot. Okay, that's not better, bro. The sewer. It's like none of these people, man. They're not thinking, bro.
The new Ed Gein series discusses in depth the crimes of Ilse Koch, a notorious figure in Nazism known as the Bitch of Buchenwald. And her story is even more disturbing in real life than it is on the show. So this is Ilse and her husband Karl Otto. Both of them were members of the Nazi Party in Germany. And in July of 1937, Karl Otto took control of the Buchenwald concentration camp. Ilse, her husband Karl Otto, and their children lived in a 3-story commandant house at the concentration camp, and it was there at Buchenwald where Ilse's disturbing crimes really began. After the war ended, Ilse was accused of selecting certain Jewish prisoners to be killed specifically for their skin, and she supposedly had decorative objects like lampshades and book bindings made out of the Jewish prisoners' human flesh. When the Buchenwald camp was eventually liberated, they found a collection of human organs that had been obviously taken from prisoners that were murdered and stored in bizarre ways. According to many survivors of the camp, Ilse was an absolutely evil woman who had frequently made use of slave labor and had overseen many projects that led to numerous deaths. Now, interestingly, even before the camp was liberated, Ilse's husband, Karl Otto, was arrested by German authorities and was actually executed there at the camp. And eventually, U.S. authorities arrested Ilse in 1945, and she was convicted of crimes against prisoners at a military tribunal in Dachau. However, controversially, her sentence was reduced to just 4 years in prison for her alleged widespread, extremely disturbing crimes. So in 1949, Ilse was released. But immediately afterwards, she was rearrested by German authorities. She had another trial, and she was then sentenced to life imprisonment. Ilse spent the rest of her life in isolation, trapped in a prison cell, and she told those around her that while she was in prison for these crimes, she had constant delusions and visions of prisoners chasing and pursuing her. Prisoners that she had played. This was really interesting that they portrayed her story in the Monster series. But when it comes to crimes carried out at concentration camps all throughout Europe, there are really so many other stories that even get more disturbing that we could talk about, because it is up for debate whether or not she actually carried out the crimes that she was accused of. Like, for example, some people don't think she actually had prisoners selected to be used for their skin. Some people have claimed that this was overblown, but the real truth of the situation, I guess, continues to remain buried to this day.
Insane.
So today we're going to be talking about the horrific crimes of Todd Kohlhepp. So between 2003 and 2016, former South Carolina realtor Todd Kohlhepp unalived at least 7 people, burying a few of them in his backyard. Todd was caught after police traced the cell phone signal of a missing woman to his property. However, most disturbing of all is that after he was arrested, police found that Todd would order a lot of his weapons off Amazon, and then after he got them and used them to unalive his victims, he would actually go back and leave a review rating them for how well they worked. Some of his reviews even included reviewing a shovel and about how well it worked in digging a hole for multiple bodies, and even reviewing padlocks and how well they worked in keeping people locked in shipping containers.
Todd was found guilty of all the deaths, and he is currently serving.
That will probably keep you up at night. There are thousands of old diseases frozen in the glaciers of the world, and global warming will eventually release them all. If a person dies in their costume at Disney, like Mickey Mouse, they have to be sat down on a bench so it looks like they're resting. Climate change is making spiders bigger. Some female spiders allow their young to eat them alive. Tooth in the eye surgery is when surgeons put a tooth in a blind person's eye to restore their sight. It was pioneered in the 1960s, and it actually works, and it's still being done today. The chances of a successful CPR outside of a hospital is only 7%. Cell phones are 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat. When you suddenly wake up during the night without any reason, there was someone or something staring at you. Yeah, there's a lot more, like for part 12.
The last one has to be cap, right? I wake up in the middle of the night all the time.
Here are facts you probably didn't know that one day could save your life. Part 6. If you see money falling from buildings, do not pick it up. Get out of there immediately. It's a way terrorists gather more people into a collected area. If you smell cinnamon in your drink, do not drink it. It's a cover-up for poison. If you're in the woods with nothing to eat, the yellow dandelions are fully edible. If you get bitten and poisoned, do not suck it. This will only make it worse. If you see a white fuzzy spot on your banana, do not eat it. This is a spider infestation. If the air starts to smell like chlorine during a storm, it means lightning might hit the area you're standing in very soon. If you or someone else is eating a fruit and they complain about it tasting fuzzy or hairy, it might mean that they're allergic to it. If you need heat or a light, a crayon will burn for 14 minutes. If you're outside and you're freezing, and then all of a sudden you feel warm with no explanation, do not remove your clothes. You're about to die, and your body is spending its very last energy heating you up. Seek shelter and warmth immediately.
Really? For the last part? Okay.
Africa wants a new world map, calling the current one the world's longest misinformation campaign. This week, the African Union officially backed what's called the Correct Map campaign, which aims to replace our current standardized world map with a version that shows a country's true size. You see, the Mercator map intentionally distorts the sizes of continents and countries for navigation purposes. So it appears that Africa is a similar size to the US or China, when in reality it is so much bigger that the US, China, India, Japan, and much of Western Europe can all fit into Africa, and there still would be space left over. The African Union says that this over 500-year-old map is outdated, and are now calling for schools, governments, and international institutions to adopt images that reflect a country's true size. They propose the Equal Earth projection because they say this is so much more than just a map. It's about Africa's identity and pride. In fact, the head of a campaign group backing this says it's the world's longest misinformation and disinformation campaign, and it simply has to stop. But the question is, what do you think? Does size truly matter, or is the current map fine the way it is?
Here are some facts that you probably didn't know that one day could save your life. Part 21. If your microwave is broken, do not try and fix it. Even if it's been unplugged for several days, it still holds a current capable of shocking you to death. If you're ever doing work on a car, always have it on jack stands or a lift. Car jacks are for lifting, not holding. If you're wounded but have a cigarette nearby, you can actually use the filling to pack the injury. This is because tobacco is aseptic, meaning there's little to no harmful bacteria. If you drink bad homemade alcohol, it may contain methanol, which is deadly. Ironically though, the cure is ethanol or regular alcohol, so if you get sick from moonshine, a glass of whiskey or some vodka could save your life. Some women anecdotally reported that breast implants offer protection from knives and sometimes bullets, so scientists at the University of Utah decided to test this. And while they aren't 100% bulletproof, them silicone tatas sure do make an impact.
Wow, what the bulletproof breast? Okay. I did not know that. They didn't say like it's fully, I guess, protection, but I'm guessing it does offer a layer of protection, bro. Where we at? Won't be me.
World records that will probably never be broken. Up first, we have Kevin Fast. He holds the record for the longest distance an airplane was pulled. He pulled an entire plane for 28 feet. This is extremely hard hard, and it's very unlikely this record will ever be broken. Next up, we have Thomas Blackthorne. In 2004, he broke a record for the heaviest weight supported by a tongue. He pierced his tongue with a hook and lifted 27 pounds for 5 seconds. I can't even imagine doing this. Apparently, he trained for 6 years before this. And don't worry, he did not get hurt.
Today Googled what is the most someone has sold their virginity for. So in 5th place was 20-year-old Brazilian student Catarina, who sold her virginity for a whopping $780,000 in 2013. She claims that it never ended up happening and then put herself back on the market for the 2nd time. It was never confirmed whether she was telling the truth about whether it happened or not. In 4th place we have 27-year-old medical student Elizabeth Rain, who sold it for $801,000. She was the only one on the list who designed her own auction website, had a PR company managing her bids, and had an entire page devoted to the terms and conditions of the arrangement. In 3rd place, we have 18-year-old Gracilia Yataco from Peru, who got an offer of $1.5 million for the old V card, but apparently turned it down. In 2nd place is the Italian model and Big Brother Italy contestant Raffaella Fico. She said that she would sell it for $1.8 million, saying, if I don't like it, I'll just have a glass of wine and forget about it. And that's like a lot of these, the sale was never fully confirmed because in most countries it's actually illegal. And then in at number 1, and by far the most well-known on the list, is Natalie Dillon, who received an offer of $3.7 million. She apparently even received a $250,000 deposit put up by an Australian businessman before choosing to not go through with it at the last minute.
The fact that people are willing to pay that amount for the box, it's just sad, man. 3.7 million, they got too much money, bro. Way too much money.
There was a group of animals so disgusting that not only did they traumatize a researcher, all of his studies about them had to be hidden from the public. British explorer George Levick literally messed around and found out when he joined an Antarctica expedition in 1911. That's when he came across a colony of Adelie penguins, and he decided to stay and observe them for an entire breeding season. He would regret that, because he found out that Adelie penguins are 50 shades of morally bankrupt. He watched in shock as the male penguins would attempt to mate with literally anything. This included other males, females too injured to resist, and he even witnessed them make moves on unaccompanied and very much underage chicks. It was so vile that in his journals, George referred to them as hooligan cocks. It didn't stop there, in fact it got worse. There were multiple cases where George watched a down bad bird score with a decomposing corpse, like to the point where males were fighting over it. Because apparently not having a pulse doesn't mean you're off the table. And just to see how far they'd go, he took the frozen head of a decapitated female and propped it against a mound of ice. The answer was far enough. And in one down egregious case, a male mated with the ground to completion. He also learned that if male Adelies understood the signs that a female wants to mate, they could not care less about it. In one case, a female was so crippled that she couldn't even walk, she could only painfully crawl on her belly. The male walked up to the handicapped female, and in 60 seconds he managed to destroy everything George thought he knew about them. He wrote down every messed up thing he had learned, but because the contents of his research were so graphically descriptive, the British Museum of Natural History refused to publish it and vaulted it. It was finally published almost 100 years later, meaning man's got traumatized in every way and didn't even live long enough to see his work get recognized. Oh, but the worst part? These guys are Adelie penguins. And you can probably guess who the light work is.
Penguins of Madagascar? Oh man, that's ruining our childhood, bro. I never knew that. Damn, but it took 100 years for its work to get noticed. That's crazy, bro. Hotel. Late night. Looks like someone in the room.
People with giant body parts. Up first, we have Jason Rodriguez. He holds the record for the largest feet in the entire world. He wears a shocking size 70 in European sizing, and his feet are over 40 centimeters long. He needs specially made shoes because, of course, regular ones don't fit. Next up, we have Samantha Ramsdell. She's officially the woman with the widest mouth. Her mouth measures 10 centimeters in width. She went viral on TikTok for being able to eat very large sandwiches. You could even eat full fruits.
If a masked woman in Japan asks you if she's beautiful, be careful how you respond. It could be Kuchisake Onna. Some people call her the slit-mouthed woman. She was abused and mutilated during her lifetime. It's said that her husband cut a smile on his face from ear to ear. She now haunts the streets of Japan wearing a mask and rusty scissors, asking people one question: if they think she's beautiful or not.
You think I'm beautiful? Yeah. still think I'm beautiful?
He said, I'm out.
What happened to you?
Comment down below, smash or pass. By the way, a lot of y'all keep asking how's
Pass,
Gizmo.
bro.
He is 14 years old now. Let's give him a biggie. Oh, you look at the biggie. If you encounter her, please be careful how you answer her question. If you say yes, she'll take her mask off and ask you again. And if you say yes one more time, she'll cut you a smile on your face just like hers. Oh, and if you say no, she'll unalive you right there and then. So what do? How do you survive? 1,000 IQ right here. Tell her she aight. I mean, girl, you aight. You know what I'm saying? You cool. Like, I smashed, but can we put a bag over your face? The other way to survive is to throw money at her, which she'll stop to pick up, giving you enough time to run away. My lord, this smoothie is unequivocally f***ing buzzing.
So throw money and hit the Jets.
This
Noted.
is why you should never let your kids play outside alone or even take your eyes off of them for a second, even if it's in your own front yard. This is 6-year-old Gracelyn Vick. This case is out of Mississippi, and she was last seen by her family heading outside to play in her front yard on Sunday afternoon before she completely disappeared. Her family then reported her missing, and first responders immediately began searching air, land, and water with ATVs, a helicopter, canine units, and even volunteers before they made the horrifying discovery of Gracelyn's body, which was questionably found in the vicinity of the family's property. Details about this case are very limited, but people in the area are saying that she was found in a barrel, and this has something to do with her mother's boyfriend, and that her mother and her boyfriend are already arrested, but none of this has been confirmed by police. While investigators didn't confirm any foul play, they did have crime tapes surrounding the scene. They're still working on the cause of death and autopsy results to determine if this was a tragic accident or if something was done to her. But rest in peace to Gracelyn. Let me know what you guys think about this, and as any new details come out, I'll keep you guys updated.
13 kids chained to their beds. They were starved, abused, living in filth for years, and somehow nobody noticed. Let's talk about the Turpin family, because this was actually breaking my heart. The parents, David and Louise Turpin, he was 23, she was 16 when they got married, which is already a walking red flag. They went on to have 13 kids, ages 2 to 29, and on the outside, they looked like a regular, quiet, religious family. But inside that house, I don't know any other way to explain it other than pure hell. The walls were covered in grime, the air smelled like human waste, there was trash everywhere, mattresses were filled with piss. The kids were literally chained to their beds with padlocks, sometimes for days, sometimes for months. They were so starved that their arms looked like twigs, and then the grown-up kids looked 12. That is how malnourished they were. They got a shower once a year, and if they had an accident, they would be left sitting in it for hours. Oh, and get this, the fridge, it was fully stocked, but it was locked. The food was there, but they couldn't touch it. And when one of the older kids tried to sneak a bite of food, the parents made them watch as the family cat got mauled to death by wild dogs. Can we all agree that's psychotic as hell? But it gets way worse. They claimed to be homeschooling their kids, but they were not teaching them a damn thing. Most of them couldn't spell their own names. Some of them didn't even know what day it was. They weren't allowed to talk to each other, and their parents controlled every single second of their lives. And you're probably thinking, where was CPS? Where were their neighbors? Oh, the neighbors noticed. They said that the kids looked pale, thin, shy, but they just assumed that it was like homeschool awkwardness, and they just kept it pushing. Nobody said a thing. The system never stepped up, not once. Until one day, 17-year-old Jordan and her 13-year-old sister finally escaped. They crawled out of a window, but her little sister got so scared she crawled back inside. But Jordan, she knew that if she did not make it out right now, they were all going to die eventually. And using a phone that she had secretly grabbed from the house, she calls 911. Shaking and terrified, she tells police, "I just ran away from home. My parents are abusing us. They hit us, and 2 of my sisters are chained up right now." Police rush to the house, and when they walk inside, 3 kids are still chained to the beds, and the rest of them are scattered around the house in rooms that reek of death. But you think that'd be the end, right? Now that they're finally safe. No, because somehow the system failed them again. They got dumped into foster homes where they were abused again, assaulted again, neglected again. How does that even happen? And the government raised millions in donations to help the Turpin kids rebuild their lives, but they were still broke, still hungry, and still struggling for many years. Where did that money go? And then David and Louise had the audacity to walk into court and say, not guilty. Not guilty? You change your kids to bed. You let them rot in their own filth. And now you're pretending like it's all a big misunderstanding. Luckily, they eventually took a plea deal, but not because they felt sorry, not because they felt bad. It was because they wanted to avoid their kids being able to testify. And what did they get? 25 to life, but guess what? They can apply for parole in 25 years. And if either of them ever walks free, this country has failed us again.
That's a crazy story.
A 17-year-old boy admitted to breaking into a home, a 98-year-old woman while leaving his DNA inside her body. Gavin Ramsey, the teenage perpetrator, invaded 98-year-old Margaret Douglas's residence in Wadsworth under cover of darkness last April. He used his phone to record her sleeping, then murdered her and desecrated her corpse while leaving biological evidence at the scene. During court proceedings, Ramsey's family revealed he had endured childhood abuse and been prescribed the antidepressant Zoloft during adolescence, factors they claimed contributed to the horrific crimes. Margaret Douglas's loved ones tearfully described her vivacious personality and passion for life, emphasizing how Ramsey destroyed her dream of reaching 100 years old. The presiding judge sentenced Ramsey to life imprisonment without parole. His mother accepted partial responsibility in court, admitting she authorized his Zoloft prescription and alleging the medication altered his behavior. Is a life sentence too severe for a 17-year-old? Share your perspective on this punishment in the comments.
This mom helped her son cover up his girlfriend's murder. Emily Peguero was born on July 12, 2001 in the Dominican Republic. She had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, so she was the baby of the family. Everyone describes her as being absolutely beautiful, very kind and loving, and just extremely bright. Her parents were very hardworking people. They didn't come from a lot of money, but they did their best to provide a good life for Emily and her siblings. When Emily was a little girl, she would often play with the neighbor that lived across the street, and his name is Marlon Martinez. So even though they were neighbors and lived right next to each other, they came from very different families. Marlon's mother, Marlene, was very well known around the community. She worked in politics, so she had a lot of connections. They lived in this very big house that was guarded by a large gate, while Emily lived in a more humble, tiny home. Emily and Marlon grew up very close to each other, and when Emily was 15 years old and Marlon was 18 years old, they began to date. So yes, she was a minor. They dated for a few months, and when Emily was 16 years old and Marlon was now 19 years old, they found out that Emily was pregnant. Of course, Emily's family was very scared and very nervous because the baby of the family was now going to have her own baby. It was definitely a scary situation, but they were supportive of Emily. As for Marlon's family, his mom was not happy about this. She was very upset about the fact that her son got a poor girl pregnant, and she was really worried about the family's reputation. She honestly didn't even care that Emily was 16 and was so young and going through this really big life-changing moment. She cared more about how this was going to affect her son's future and how this was going to affect him going to college. Despite his mom's opinion, Marlon told Emily and her dad that he was going to step up, take responsibility for this, and take care of Emily and the baby. Fast forward to August 23rd, 2017, Emily is now 5 months pregnant and she is expecting a baby boy. That day, Emily had plans to go to the clinic with Marlon to go pick up some lab results, and then she said that she would be back later that day. So Marlon picked her up at around 8:30 in the morning and the two of them headed off to the clinic. At around 11:25 in the morning, Emily texted her older sister saying that Marlon was actually going to drop her off at a gas station because she had plans to go meet up with their uncle. Now, as soon as Emily's sister and their mom saw this message, they were immediately concerned. First of all, Emily always sends voice messages, so the fact that she texted this time was extremely odd. Second of all, they were thinking, what uncle? Like, what uncle is Emily meeting with, and why don't we know about this meetup? Why would the uncle ask Emily to meet him at the gas station? Like, none of this made any sense. Now again, since the families are neighbors, they can literally see Marlon arriving home completely alone across the street. So Emily's sister decides to go across the street to ask Marlon, where is my sister? Where did you leave her? And that's when Marlon explains that as they were driving to the clinic, Emily realized that she got the dates confused and that her results weren't going to be ready that day, but instead be ready Friday. So she asked Marlon to take her home, and as they were driving, she said, actually, can you drop me off at the gas station? My uncle is going to pick me up there. So that's exactly what he did, and that was the last time that he saw or spoke to her. Again, Emily's family was extremely suspicious of this, so they decided to go to the gas station and ask the employees for the surveillance footage. And when they got to the gas station and looked at the footage, they were shocked by what they saw. Well, actually, they were shocked by what they didn't see. Okay, go to part 2.
I have some updates for you guys in the case of 7-month-old Emmanuel Harrow from Yucaipa, California, whose mother reported him kidnapped on August 14th. So the guy on top is attorney Vincent Hughes. He was retained to represent Jake Harrow, not Rebecca, just Jake, who he has previously represented. Remember his 2018 felony charge of willful child cruelty that he was convicted of in 2023? Well, check this out. This is from KTLA. On October 13th, 2018, Harrow and his ex-wife, Avina's 10-week-old daughter, was admitted to Hemet Valley Hospital. Doctors reported to police that the little girl had an acute or new fractured rib, 6 ribs with healing fractures, a skull fracture, brain hemorrhage, swelling of the neck, and a fractured leg bone that was healing. He blamed the baby's injuries on his wife, so they were both arrested and charged, and they both pleaded guilty in 2023. So what I want to know is if this man practically killed his baby girl, why on earth was he not in prison, and why was he allowed to still be around children? And I wanted to show you guys this. These are some older photos of Rebecca Harrow, and this one is obviously recent. People are saying that there's a video going around that shows she actually had that black eye on August 3rd. And it's also being reported that nobody saw baby Emmanuel at that football practice. Now, going back to the attorney, he did confirm that both Rebecca and Jake handed over their iPhones and their laptops along with the passcodes. And it's going around that their property is surrounded by cameras, but when the police tried to obtain that footage, it had already been deleted. The attorney hasn't said anything to confirm that, but I just wanted to tell you guys it is a rumor at this point. Anyway, be sure to hit the follow button because I'll keep you guys updated.
All right. But the fact that the footage was deleted before the cops can see it, that's concerning. Very. Why'd you have to delete that footage? What was on it that you didn't want nobody to see? This world, man, can be a cruel place.
Same little girl and my half-brother, Zach, lost their mom as well. I'm gonna jump straight to the point because I'm sure all of you are wondering why the hell I'm on here crying like this. And it's because I simply don't know what else to do. These two kids have to live the rest of their life without either of their parents going to their wedding or their graduation or meeting their grandkids because of their parents' own selfish actions. If you've watched this far, I'm sorry for how much of a wreck I am, and I'm thankful for you watching because thankfully I am part of the creator rewards, which means that any money from this video will go directly to supporting these two kids. Now, they're not this young anymore. My sister is almost a junior in high school and my brother's 19 years old and lives with me. We've all seen the pay off each other's debts trend, or whatever you want to call it. And I personally didn't participate in it because I know my debt is a lot less than a lot of other people's, even though I do have the follower requirement and whatever. But all I'm asking of you is that you watch this for at least 5 seconds, which if you've made it this far you have, and that you like, comment, or share. Because this girl that was driving after high school to go make sure there was food on their table at my grandparents' house, and that their laundry was done, never imagined that they would lose both of their parents before he ever turned 20 and she ever got her driver's license. I'm raising two beautiful kids of my own, and when my dad passed away, I knew that as soon as I had kids, I was going to do everything in my power to make sure they didn't have the same childhood trauma that we went through. That also meant that I took out life insurance policies and I've invested in their future, but I never planned to financially support 4 kids. Like I mentioned before, my brother is 19 and he does currently live with us, and he works over 40 hours a week as a welder, and he's been saving money to try and move out on his own. This past week, he was actively trying to apply and call apartments for availability. Now, I don't know about you, but at 19, I had no clue what I was doing with my life. And when I was trying to move out, it wasn't the same economy that we're in today. So my plan is to take the money from this video and help him buy any furniture and things he needs for his own apartment and maybe put down a deposit. And my sister just got into CTC, which is like a vocational school, and would really like to go to college after that. Obviously, there's nothing I can do or say to them right now that is going to take the pain of losing both of their parents away. So if I can take this much of the financial burden from their lives, I want to at least give it a try. They have absolutely no clue that I'm posting this video, and they would probably tell me not to because they don't want handouts. So yeah, for a minute, I'm going to be that girl crying on the internet. Because if you had the chance to help your family, you would too.
Breaking news, a 12-year-old girl missing for months was just found 600 miles away from her home with a 34-year-old man that she met online. Maria Gomez Perez was recovered safely in Dover, Ohio on Thursday, which was 8 weeks after she was last seen at her family's home in Gainesville, Georgia on May 29th. She was tracked to Ohio when she used a new Facebook account to message her dad saying she was fine and she wanted him to stop looking for her. They tracked the IP address of that message to Dover, and that's when they found Gomez Perez staying with a 34-year-old man, Antonio Augustine, and after following them, they were able to arrest him in a shopping center parking lot. Gomez Perez was taken to a hospital for a wellness check and then was sent back to her family in Georgia. Investigators believe Augustine traveled from Ohio to Georgia, where he picked up the girl and then drove back to Ohio. They said Maria was communicating with him through Facebook Messenger and other apps, and she was indicating that she wasn't happy and wanted to leave her home, and she even did this with many other adult males. Augustine is currently being held in jail and is facing charges in Georgia and Ohio, but let me know what you guys think about this, and as always, I'll keep you guys updated.
This people are freaking crazy, bro. No, that man drive all the way from Ohio to Georgia to pick her up and just take her. wasn't gonna act like there was gonna be no consequences for that. I do not know what goes on through those people's heads.
Girl unalived her little brother, then consumed his private parts. This is 5-year-old Maicon Rauch and his 18-year-old sister Karina, and they both live with their mother Daniela in Brazil. On April 4th of 2019, Daniela had to do some shopping, so she left Maicon back at home with Karina. Daniela returned home over an hour later, and for some reason she wasn't able to open the front door, just wouldn't open. Daniela had yelled for her children to come help open the door for her, but Karina yelled back that she couldn't open it for her. Daniela started to get worried, so she had contacted her brother-in-law to come break down the door. Once they both got inside the home, they were met with a horrific scene. Karina had unalived Maicon, partially decapitated him, and mutilated him. The family dog started to attack Karina, and she retaliated and bit the dog. Karina then started to attack the uncle by throwing things at him and hitting him. She even tried to flee the scene, but she was luckily caught. Once police had arrived and saw Maicon's body, they saw that his body was surrounded by black candles. That's when they discovered that Karina had cut and eaten some parts of Maicon's body. Karina was quickly arrested and taken to the police station. At first, Karina refused to speak, but later on, she confessed everything. She stated that she asked Maicon if he wanted to come in her room to play some games, and of course, Maicon agreed. Karina grabbed a pillow, pinned him down, and suffocated him. Karina then grabbed a knife and tried to remove his head. She had left Maicon partially decapitated. Karina then inserted the knife into his eyes and burned his feet with a lighter. She then removed his genitals and ate them. Karina was charged with aggravated homicide, attempted murder of her uncle, hiding a dead body, and biting the family dog. Karina was sent to a psychiatric hospital, and she continues to receive medical, social, and psychological care.
There's no words to even describe that, so I ain't even gonna try. Where do you? Why do people be out there at night, bro? Can't you just like feel the eerie vibe?
It began as a normal day in July 2019. That was until locals in a neighbourhood in New South Wales, Australia, entered a real-life horror film. A woman was covered in blood, yelling for people to phone the police. The woman in question was Jessica Camilleri, and the neighbourhood would never be the same again. Jessica was the daughter of Vince and Rita Camilleri, and she had a troubled upbringing. She struggled with various mental health issues, including bipolar and paranoia. She was bullied at school and was eventually removed after an assault. Her behaviour started escalating, and she frequently had violent outbursts. Despite her parents getting divorced, her mum Rita remained dedicated to looking after Jessica. In 2018, Jessica was detained in a psychiatric facility after attacking a woman in a doctor's waiting room. She had also attacked several members of her family and random members of the public prior to this. Things got worse while she was in the facility. She ended up attacking a nurse, and her mum insisted on discharging her. She said things would be fine and she would look after Jessica at home. The pair actually had a fairly good relationship, and they would send each other sweet messages. However, Jessica started to become obsessed with a man that she knew, harassing him with phone calls and threatening him. Rita actually had to take her to the police station to try and scare her into stopping. It worked for a while and the calls died down. Then on July the 20th, 2019, while out walking with her mum, Jessica had an episode of paranoia. Suddenly, she decided that her mum was trying to humiliate her. She escalated into a violent rage, and her mum had to try and call the doctor to come and assess her. However, when the doctor arrived at the house, Jessica actually chased him out. As Rita tried to phone for emergency services, Jessica attacked her with 7 knives. Dang. She decapitated her mum and dragged her head outside onto the pavement. Covered in blood, she ran to her neighbours' houses, yelling that she'd killed her mum. When police arrived at the scene, Jessica was stood asking if it was possible to bring someone back to life if they didn't have a head. The crime scene was so disturbing that many of the emergency services personnel had to get trauma therapy. In 2020, Jessica was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter due to her complex psychiatric illnesses. She was eventually given 16 years in prison.
Various urban legends that actually turned out to be true. In the 1970s in Long Beach, California, there was an amusement park called the Pike Amusement, and inside this park was this creepy little fun house called Laugh in the Dark.
Okay.
Inside of Laugh in the Dark were a bunch of mannequins, and this urban legend started circulating around that all of them were fake except one. There was just something about this mannequin that turned people away. They said he was a little too human, and they even said that the area around it was just stanky. So flashing forward to a few years later, a TV crew comes in to film The $6 Million Man, and they decide to use Laugh in the Dark as one of their sets. So the director's trying to get the perfect shot, and this one mannequin that's been in question is in the shot, but he's just not liking how it's looking with it in it. So he asked one of the crew members to move it. So this crew member goes over, and when he tries to move the mannequin, its arm falls off. Inside is human bone. It's actually a mummified body. The body belonged to Elmer McCurdy, who was dubbed the bandit who wouldn't give up. He was an outlaw who was robbing a train in Oklahoma in 1911 when he was taken out by the police. His body was on display at an Oklahoma funeral home, but ownership changed and he got shifted around and around and around until he finally ended up at the Pike Amusement, and everyone thought he was fake until he was finally positively ID'd in 1976.
This is why you
That's
should never
insane.
read someone else's diary. Once there was a girl named Samantha who took her friends to her dad's lake house because her dad grew up in the area and actually named the lake after her, Lake Samantha. But as soon as her friends arrived, they noticed something strange. There was a doll hanging on every door in all the houses in town. Samantha explained it's because of a local urban legend. Years ago, a man escaped from an insane asylum nearby, unalived his entire family, then disappeared. Since then, people would go missing around the same time every year, so the dolls were used for protection. But after spending a day by the lake, Samantha and her friends found an old diary, half buried in the dirt near an abandoned house. They opened it up and saw multiple entries dating back to the 80s, but the most terrifying part was the last entry dated August 13, 2010. And it said, "I'm so proud of my daughter. She doesn't hear the voices and she has a lot of friends. Sometimes I take her to these woods. I even named the lake after her." That's when they all heard the sound of twigs snapping behind them, and when they turned around, they saw Samantha's father, saying, "You weren't supposed to find that. Follow for more."
Records that will never be broken again. Number 1, the woman with the most children. Back in the 1800s, a Russian woman named Vasiliev gave birth to 69 total children.
God
she
damn.
had 16 pairs of twins, 7 triplets, and 4 quadruplets. And no one has come close to matching that number since. Number 2, the most nuclear explosions ever survived. This is Tsutomu Namaguchi. He has survived 2 different nuclear explosions. Tsutomu was on a business trip when the first nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. After miraculously surviving that explosion, he returned to his hometown of Nagasaki just in time to witness the second atomic bombing. But again, he miraculously survived and lived till the age of 93.
Do you know how lucky you have to be to survive 2 of those events in history? Yeah, something on his side. Because he survived 2 of them. That's insane. And those women who held those kids, I don't think that record's probably ever going to be broken. 69? What the hell?
Are the creepiest YouTube channels to ever exist.
Talk about it.
Part 1. Number 1, Meat Sleep. Meat Sleep began posting in 2015 and has since then stopped posting, but that still doesn't change the fact that its horrifying videos and very disturbing history linked to the channel gives it a spot on this list. Meat Sleep then removed the several videos it had on the channel even after garnering over 16,000 subscribers, but that still doesn't change the fact that some people saw some very terrible things. Most of the channel consisted of videos that seemed to be of people being stalked, but there was one video in particular that people pointed out that really just got under their skin. There was one video on the channel titled Meat Pig, which in cannibals' terms is actually human meat. Many people believe that the creator behind these videos is secretly a murderer and a cannibal as well. I assume the creator of this channel is still unknown, but who knows, they may be in jail.
And they was posting them on YouTube and getting away with it? That was evidence right there. Man. Meat Sleep. First time hearing about that, man. Top in with us, you're gonna learn. Just edit.
This
All them
teenager
out.
killed his mom over a bad grade. This is 15-year-old Gregory Ramos. And on November 2nd, 2018, Gregory Ramos got into a fight with his mother, Gail Clevenger. The fight started over his bad school grades, which resulted in him strangling his own mother to death. Gregory then proceeded to call 2 of his friends to help him bury her body and stage a robbery at his house. Gregory buried her body under a church fire pit and was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Now, what I'm about to show you is Gregory explaining exactly how he committed the murder, and it's absolutely disturbing, because keep in mind, this was his own mother.
Whatever. Alright, I'll tell you what happened. Alright, so I got home, I got an argument with my mom, she slapped me across the face, she began to hit me, she started beating me, I didn't like it, so I strangled her to death. Alright? I put her in a wheelbarrow, I put her in my car, I took the car, I had a mental breakdown where I almost committed suicide 3 times, I drove around Daytona, I dropped the wheelbarrow in some random ass location, and I drove back to the church, I began to dig a hole. I dig a hole right under the fucking fire pit. I dug a pretty deep hole, pretty deep. I think that's what put about it in.
No remorse.
All this time, my mom was a decomposing body. I dragged it from my car to the fire pit. In which case, I tried to get the wedding ring off her finger because I wanted to pawn it, but I couldn't because I have a nice charm to cut bones. Oh well, whatever. Anyways, so I dug that hole, threw her body in there, filled back in, made it look all nice and natural, dumped my clothes, and then I went home.
I'm being serious. If you ever see this at the beach, do not touch it. And if it ever latches onto you like this, get help immediately. Before you do anything else, favorite this video because this could actually save your life one day.
What
now,
is
at
that?
first glance, like me, you would think this is an alien creature from the deepest corners of hell. Whereas in fact, this is actually a detached octopus limb. Now yes, if an octopus's arm becomes disconnected from its body, it does have the ability to live on for a short period of time by itself, explaining why it's able to move like a creature straight out of an alien movie. This of course is absolutely horrifying and a brand new conversation to bring up with your therapist if you saw this going about its business on the beach. Now the suction power of this single arm would be incredibly difficult to remove on your own, because if you didn't know, one suction cup from an octopus can hold up to 35 pounds. And I am talking Great British, and on top of that hurts. Like, really badly! Now, this most likely wouldn't make this gentleman a Twitter hashtag. However, I wouldn't like to imagine if this was stuck on a more sensitive part of the body. Like the neck. So here's the best case scenario. You see it, you avoid it, you survive. I've said this to literally anyone you know because they might need this video one day.
In 2010.
That's crazy, bro. I didn't even know freaking an octopus, I guess arm or leg had that much freaking suction power, bro. So if you see it, follow his advice, turn away, bro. Don't try to attach that onto your body, man. We learned it.
And an avid caver named Jeff decided to go to Madagascar to explore a natural cave shaft he had discovered years earlier. He arrived in country. Jeff enters the cave when he notices something out of the corner of his eye, and he sees thousands of black widow spiders trying to escape the light. As much as Jeff wanted to stop right there and go right back up to the surface, he couldn't. He needed technical gear, and his technical gear was packed in his backpack, so he would have to descend to the bottom, then take his pack off, get the gear out, and go back up. He began his slow, awful descent into this cave filled with spiders. If he bumped into the wall, he'd hear them scatter all over the walls, and then he saw them climbing on his sleeve, he saw them on the rope. He finally gets to the bottom, and he opens it up. Spiders crawl out of his bag, carefully reaches in and pulls out his technical gear, throws it up, and he begins making his way back up. Once he gets to the surface, the first thing he does is he strips all of his clothing off to get all the spiders off of his clothing. Luckily, he doesn't get bent. He takes his notebook out, and he scratches off the title he had given this cave from the last time he was here, which was the Crooked Tube. He scratches that out, and on top of it, he writes, "The entrance to hell."
Things we all believed as kids. For some reason, I thought that if I swallowed watermelon seeds, an entire tree would grow inside of me. Now at night, if you didn't start running to your room as soon as you turned off the lights, the monster that was somehow chasing you would catch you and eat you. A blanket could literally protect us from anything, and I would still argue that my blanket is a modern day shield. My parents used to tell me if I crossed my eyes for long enough, my eyes would stay stuck that way forever.
Yep, those were like myths as the kids.
Things you
Yeah,
can't
debunked.
unsee. The KFC logo looks like Colonel Sanders has a tiny body. Now I can never unsee it.
Have you ever noticed that the letter G is simply a spinning arrow? Those drowning signs at the beach look very similar to LOL. There's nothing funny about drowning. The Dodge Viper logo looks like Daffy Duck upside down. Ever noticed how water fountain drains look like a Wi-Fi logo? This sign for a German school looks a bit suspicious. Did you know there's a bear hidden inside the Toblerone logo? Did you ever notice Nelson from The Simpsons is simply a young Barney? And in the 7-Eleven logo, only the N is in lowercase. The Hunger Games Mockingjay logo looks very similar to Johnny Bravo. And I bet you never realized the Big Bang Theory's Dexter's Laboratory grown up. Also, the collar on the Wendy's girl says Mom. Homer Simpson has MG sneaked onto him. These are the initials of Matt Groening, The Simpsons creator.
I never realized.
And finally, the Adidas logo kind of looks like a sinking ship.
Damn, all these hidden logos and stuff, bro. They were right in front of our eyes and we never even knew. It goes to make you think, man. What other logos have hidden messages behind it? The more you know. That's the edit. We're calling them out.
Scary facts that will blow your mind. Part 1. The middle of nowhere is an actual place within New Mexico. The legend goes that an elderly couple lived out there with their dog and witnessed many strange and bizarre things. One night, they reported seeing a strange creature that they identified as a skinwalker. After reporting this to the police, the family had vanished under strange circumstances. Their dog, however, was left behind. This is the story that Courage the Cowardly Dog was based off of. Like and follow for more.
Adult jokes in kids' cartoons you probably didn't notice.
Hey, Judy! Want a party with a real bug? Oh, lady, come like lava. Yeah.
So, being a ladybug automatically makes me a girl. Is that it, flyboy? Huh?
Yikes! She's a god!
What would happen
What
if
the
you
heck?
don't have a shower for 60 years? This is the world's dirtiest man, and he was born in 1928 in Iran, and apparently he hasn't taken a shower in 60 years, because he says he's scared of water and he thinks having a shower could kill him. And because he hasn't showered for so long, his immune system has gotten used to his body being this dirty. But over the years, people from other town have challenged him to have a shower in exchange for money, and he still tells them that he's so scared of it. So they offered him even more money, so he took it. But a few days after taking a shower, he died, because apparently his immune system was not used to him being so clean, which caused his body to go into extreme shock and pain. And before he died, he described the pain as a sharp burning sensation. What do you think caused this?
He really passed away because he took a shower? One of the most bizarre cases we've seen yet, Seekers. Bermuda Triangle? Yeah, that's another one. Antarctica. We ain't going to those places, man. That's off the bucket list. There's this guy that's at it. Call him like we see it.
A time traveler just took a lie detector test and passed it. I'm about to share with you all of his predictions for the upcoming future. So quickly make sure to favorite this video so we can come back to it to see if he was right. Let's start off with August of 2028, where aliens are meant to land here on Earth.
Yes, it is true that aliens did land on Earth in August 2028.
In fact, he states that we already know about the existence of aliens before this, as it becomes public knowledge. What? Next up, in the year 2030, the world will be governed under one law. This actually isn't a bad one. All of Earth's countries converge into one super nation.
In 2030, all of the world's countries converge into one super nation.
Next up, he goes on to say he has a chip inside of him. In fact, all humans from 2045 have this. And it has a name. Watch this.
I do have an implanted chip in my hand known as the One.
He claims it'll be rolled out to the public in 2029. It's a good thing no one's working on this, right? There's even more predictions, and as I said, he was on a lie detector machine, in which every single answer came out true. In fact, even the lie detector machine guy said that he answered very quickly and very confidently. So it leads me to ask you this, is it all real? Now do me a favor, send this to literally anyone you know, because your friends need to see this.
For and after animals growing up. This is what a baby white tiger looks like. They're born blind and only weigh 2 to 3 pounds, but they soon turn into this. Adult white tigers are ferocious and dangerous. They have a bite force of 1050 psi. To put that in perspective, a human's bite force is 162.
Damn.
They also grow razor-sharp teeth. This is what a baby Alaskan Malamute looks like. They're born with blue eyes and are tiny, fluffy, and cute. But when they grow up, they look like this. They become powerful and fierce, and their blue eyes change to brown, amber, or hazel. This is what a baby salamander looks like. They are tiny at only 2.5 centimeters in length, but when they grow older, they turn massive. Their skin turns thick and scaly. They also live for a very long time, sometimes 80 years or more. This is what a baby crocodile looks like. They're very cute and tiny at only 20 centimeters, but they're not so cute when they grow up. They become one of the most aggressive animals known to man, and can weigh a mind-blowing 2,200 pounds. This is what a baby pit bull looks like. They're very cute with oversized eyes and ears. But when they get older, they become very muscular.
Damn.
If not raised well, these can be very dangerous, which is why pit bulls are banned in over 10 countries.
What you're about to see is intense. What you just saw is the United States Coast Guard raiding a high-speed submarine in the Eastern Pacific Ocean moving more than 17,000 pounds of cocaine. On June 18th, 2019, a Coast Guard surveillance aircraft tracked and intercepted the drug-filled narco sub hundreds of miles off the Colombian-Ecuadorian coastline. The video shows a member of the Coast Guard riding on top of the speeding submarine.
Oh, what the hell?
He then starts pounding on the hatch and demanding it to come to a stop. 3 other Coast Guard members then jump ship and board the 40-foot-long submarine. The video then continues, and you see the presumed trafficker emerging from the submarine hatch with his hands up, surrender. And in total, 5 alleged smugglers were seized on board the vessel and were handed over for prosecution by the United States Drug Enforcement Administration.
Are these your friends, the police?
Now, just watch the full encounter unfold. It's honestly something straight out of a video game.
Okay. Did he have to like jump onto the sub?
That's gonna be hard to get on.
Is he speaking like another language too? Oh yeah, he definitely jumped. This is something like out of a movie scene. Whew.
Job? So make sure these criminals survive long enough to have that justice served.
That was like out of a movie scene. Serious. Where's the? There's another edit. Stay away from those dolls.
Country, they decided that these are the top 21 most hated foods in the world. Coming in at number 21 is Brussels sprouts. According to science, we're born to innately reject bitter foods. I couldn't agree more. At number 20 is cantaloupe. I don't agree with this at all. I love cantaloupe. Do I like it as much as watermelon, dragon fruit? No, but it definitely should not be on this list. At number 19 is pickles. I personally love pickles, but a lot of people voted them on the list because they're obnoxious shape. Also, people don't like their sour smell and annoying crunch. At number 18 is black licorice. Definitely. Compared to red licorice or other candy, yeah, it needs to be on that list. At number 17, you guessed it, canned tuna.
Tuna salad was actually labeled as Atlanta, Georgia's #1 most hated food. At number 16 is candy corn.
Candy corn.
I love it so much, I do not understand that. At number 15 is Spam. I just don't understand the hype behind the canned meat. At number 14 is mayonnaise. I actually have a traumatic childhood experience with mayonnaise, so I would put this at number 1 on my list. At number 13 is ginger, based off of its smell. I actually love ginger, and when I'm sick, I make a hot honey lemon ginger tea. It's the way to go. At number 12 is liver. Do I even need to say more?
Yeah, no.
At number 11 is pineapple pizza. If you're somebody that likes pineapple on your pizza, jail.
Not me.
Just go. Jail. Now for the top 10, bologna. I used to love bologna as a kid, and then I had it like 20,000 times. I haven't had it in like literally 25 years. Number 9 is circus peanuts. Totally disagree with that. I love these things so much. Number 8 is eggplants. Doesn't taste like eggs at all and super bitter. Definitely should be on the list. Number 7 is bitter gourd. I've personally never had it before, but I guess it has good medicinal traits. It was voted as one of the most hated foods in China.
Okay.
Number 6 is the durian fruit. Supposedly it doesn't taste bad, but the smell is absolutely awful. And for our top 5 comes tomatoes.
Tomatoes?
I've tried so hard to like tomatoes, the different textures, I just can't get with it. Number 4 is mushrooms. This one blew me away because I love mushrooms on pizza, by themselves, as a meat substitute, but I guess the rest of the world doesn't think so. Number 3 is cilantro. Now there's actually a genetic reason behind this. If you ask a room of 100 people if they like cilantro, 14% of them will say it tastes like soap. At number 2 is olives. A lot of people think they have a very bitter, distinct flavor, and some people say they're an acquired taste. And at number 1 on the list, you guessed it, beets.
Beets?
33% of the world said they hated beets because of their earthy flavor. Let me know in the comments which food is your least favorite and which ones you thought...
Right here is the reason I don't do it. Even the worker ran out and she's not even on the ride.
This man actually exists. This is the real-life Lizard Man. His name is Eric Sprague, and he has the nickname Lizard Man. He's well known for his many body modifications, piercings, tattoos, sharpened teeth, and even a split tongue. It took over 700 hours to get his entire body tattooed, and so far he spent $300,000 to transform himself into the Lizard Man. And he says that he's very happy with his transformation.
I think by this...
The Lizard Man, bro. That's my first time seeing it, man. We saw the Alien Man, Lizard Man. What's next? Tiger Man, Catwoman. We've actually seen a Catwoman.
At this point, we all know the dangers of hot cars in the summer, and it is unacceptable that any child be left in a car to die. But this child was in the care of a state-contracted worker when he was left alone for 5 hours and died in the hot car. This is 3-year-old Katorius KJ Starks Jr. He was living with a foster family, and on Friday, July 22nd, he was at daycare and then was headed to a visit with his father. The person responsible for getting him there was Keila Stanford, a third-party worker contracted by the Alabama Department of Human Resources. On the morning of July 22nd, the family said Stanford picked KJ up from the daycare to drive him to see his father. The visit, which was part of a court-ordered process for the parents to regain their custody of KJ, ended around 11:30 a.m. According to the family's attorney, Courtney French, quote, rather than properly returning KJ immediately to daycare, the worker made numerous personal errands with KJ buckled in a car seat in the back of her car. Stanford went home at around 12:30 p.m., leaving KJ strapped inside the vehicle with all windows up and the car engine off. He was left in that parked car outside of her home for more than 5 hours. Eventually, the daycare reached out to Stanford to ask her why KJ hadn't been returned, and it was only then that she realized he was still in her car. She called 911, but at 6:30 p.m., KJ was pronounced dead. During the time window when KJ was left alone in the car, temperatures topped 96 degrees and heat index values ranged from 101 to 105 degrees. Stanford was arrested and booked at the Jefferson County Jail and has posted a $30,000 bond. But she will be facing charges related to KJ's death. According to KJ's family, he was a bright little boy. He was only 3 years old. Rest in peace, KJ.
That
Do
young
not
man.
eat any of these things. I must be really hungry because these turtles look exactly like avocados. You can't tell me that this rock doesn't look like a loaf of bread. And this tree looks a little bit too much like sliced bacon. Why does this deodorant have to look like a delicious popsicle? And definitely don't eat these because they're actually fridge magnets. Noodles or rubber bands? Okay, this pug and this loaf of bread could be twins. Did somebody drop their bread? Just kidding, it's actually a rock. This tarp looks exactly like a delicious burrito. Okay, this one really had me fooled. That's not fried chicken, it's actually a crystal rock.
This is real footage of Lori Shaver walking down the aisle to marry her new husband after murdering and burying her previous husband in her backyard. This all started in 2015 when 36-year-old Michael Shaver mysteriously disappeared in Florida. His friends and family immediately became worried, but his wife Lori claimed that he abandoned her and the kids and that he wanted to start a new life. However, Michael's friends and family tried to get in touch with him but could never reach him. Eventually, Michael messaged his close friends and family and asked to be left alone. Then, not even a year later, Lori meets a man named Travis Filmer. They quickly got married and they had this beautiful ceremony with both their friends and family in Lori's backyard, which was this huge 5-acre property. At this point, 3 years go by since anyone's heard anything from Michael, and no one has filed a missing persons report. It wasn't until one day his close friend noticed that Michael was uploading very strange photos on Facebook, and he felt like something was off, so he asked police if they could go to his house where he lived with Lori and do a welfare check. The officer went to the backyard, which again was this huge 5-acre property, and described having this weird feeling. He said that Lori's demeanor was completely calm, like she had nothing to hide, and then he notices a cement slab with the outline of what appeared to be a human body. They quickly got a search warrant and they began digging in the backyard, and it wasn't long until they found Michael's body buried under the cement, which turns out was actually poured with the help of Lori's new husband. Her new husband testified and said that he had no idea that Michael's body was laying there and believed the story that Lori was telling everyone. So this entire time, Lori was the one logging into Michael's Facebook and uploading all these strange photos and responding to his friends and family pretending to be him. Now, things get even crazier because when Lori was arrested, she pled not guilty, and her defense tried to pin everything on her 7-year-old daughter, claiming that she shot her father while trying to defend her mother. The jury was not convinced, and Lori was convicted of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison.
To try to blame the whole thing you do, that's a new type of law that we just heard.
The bizarre beauty standards of Tudor women. The bizarre obsession with giant foreheads. Would you believe that during the Tudor dynasty, women sacrificed their eyebrows, eyelashes, and even their health for one goal: to look like an egg? That's right. Back then, the height of beauty was having a huge, smooth, and shiny forehead. The bigger, the more sophisticated. To achieve this strange ideal, women shaved the hair off their foreheads, pushed their hairlines back, and eliminated any trace of eyebrows or eyelashes that might distract from this facial monument. Unfortunately, the horror didn't stop there. Many used the infamous Venetian CESE to whiten their skin, a cream made of lead and vinegar that slowly poisoned their bodies. And the worst part is when this beauty standard became a source of shame for future generations, portraits were retouched to hide the truth.
This man saved a wolf from a trap, and a few years later it saved his life. One day, Anthony was going for a walk in the forest and came across a huge wolf. Since he was alone, he was terrified until he realized the wolf was stuck in a trap. As he approached to investigate, he realized the wolf was a female and was extremely exhausted. He knew this meant that there were starving babies around somewhere, but the wolf wouldn't trust him or let him get close. Anthony knew something had to be done, so he looked around for hours until he finally found the den. He tried to lure the pups out by howling, and after a while they were so hungry they finally came out of the den. Then he grabbed them and loaded them into his bag and took them back to the mother. When he let them out, they happily ran back to the mother. He then knew he had to find some food, so he looked around until he came across a deer that had passed away. He dragged it back to the wolves, which would keep them fed for a few days. Then he set up camp nearby, and the pups woke him up in the morning. He then decided to attempt to try and earn the wolf's trust enough for him to set the mother free. For days, he fed, talked to, and approached the wolf until the wolf finally let him put his hand on her injured paw. And it gets even better, so hit the plus for part 2.
That sounds like a movie plot, bro.
Average age to lose virginity by country. Belgium, 17.2 years old. Portugal, 16.9 years old. Bulgaria, 16.9 years old.
Keeps going lower.
Israel, 16.7 years old. Finland, 16.5 years old. Norway, 16.5 years old. Sweden, 16.2 years old.
Lower again.
Denmark, 16.1 years old. Iceland,
is it gonna stop?
15.6 years old.
An alleged serial killer in Argentina has been arrested at a house filled with body parts. A 37-year-old man has been arrested after at least 5 people were murdered in a town in Argentina. Police say the man lured homeless people into his house, killed them, and then dismembered their bodies. And these murders always took place on Fridays. The suspect was arrested after police raided his home and found, quote, bones, blood, pieces of skin, and even a nose. During the police raid, authorities encountered the man's 16-year-old nephew, who allegedly told authorities that his uncle would go out on Fridays and return with different people each night, most of them either homeless or elderly. The nephew told authorities that his uncle would, quote, beat them, kill them, cut their bodies, burn them, and take them out in garbage bags. The man has been dubbed the Machete Man by local media outlets. While not yet identified by police, A24 News Channel identified the man as Matias Dorado, a local resident who neighbors said allegedly threatened people with machetes, set fires, carried suspicious bags, and rolled around wheelbarrows at night. But neighbors say they never suspected he was a serial killer, but evidence found inside his home says otherwise. Dorado insists he is innocent, but he has been charged with aggravated homicide. And hopefully a serial killer has been taken off the street. Rest in peace to all of the victims.
You were today years old when you found this out, food edition. Number 1, the next time you're at McDonald's, fold down your ketchup pot to make a full-on plate for your fries. It's so helpful. Number 2, the lids of plastic cups at takeaways can actually come down and work as coasters. Check this out. They fit absolutely perfect. And at number 3, microwaves actually have a silent mode. That's right, go to your microwave and hold down the 0, the 1 and the cancel button and it will be as quiet as a mouse.
This has got to be the funniest trend of the year so far. So people are recreating this old phone call that Kai Cenat had with his mom on stream. These recreations go something like,
you did so good, Kai. Good boy. Good boy, you did so good, yeah.
As of right now, that is the biggest meme on TikTok. Now this meme started becoming insanely popular when big streamers like DDG started reacting to people's videos on it. Then there were people that started to make like compilations of the best remakes of this phone call. By the way, this one is the best one hands down, like that's not even debatable. But I just gotta know who exactly came up with this trend. I mean, if you see the trend without hearing the original phone call between Kai and his mom, you'd probably think there was some Diddy stuff going on in that phone call. So if you see the trend before the phone call, the actual phone call is low-key disappointing. Like, I was expecting his mom to be on there like,
I'm about to know you're number 1. My son number 1. I'm about to know.
Okay, I gotta go.
Yeah, they turned their phone call into something else. I'm guessing that was Kai moms congratulating him and they turned
I'm about to read your palms and tell you what it means. Right, first I need you to put your hands together and observe what line pattern you have. Now that you've observed your hand's line pattern, let me tell you what it means, because it could mean a lot more than you think. Number 1, if your left hand line is lower than your right. This means that you're independent and you do not care what other people think about you. You also keep your opinion to yourself and will become very wise over the years. Oh yeah, and you're a very romantic person. Number 2, if your right hand line is lower than your left. This means that you're an aggressive person but you love challenges. You're also self-confident and you do not run into relationships. And finally, number 3, the rarest of them all, if your lines are the same. This means that you're strong-minded and probably charming. You're also sensitive and care about other people's opinions. You also crave love but you do not go around asking for it.
Oh
video games are getting more expensive. It'd be a shame if somebody compiled a list of all the places you could try to find cracked games. Just be careful with your computer, though. Please don't click on any sketchy download buttons. I understand that this is a skill that you have to learn. Okay, it's 2025. Don't click on any .rar files called definitely not malware.xex. Don't install anything with like a setup final.cmd. No bat files. Unless you want your PC to sound like a jet engine and start mining crypto for somebody in Belarus. Anyway, video games used to be $60 as the standard. Now it's $70. And Nintendo went, what if it was $80? And everybody kind of just accepted it. I mean, we threw a fit, but Nintendo didn't change anything. Games launch unfinished, you guys. They sell you the rest in a DLC, and if it breaks, it's your fault for pre-ordering. But hey, game is art, and I support artists. I'm not supporting piracy. I'm not encouraging that. Piracy is wrong. You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a handbag. You wouldn't download a pizza. But you might just download a 120 gigabyte AAA mess that fired half the developers and locked the ending behind $30. So no, I would not recommend you check out any of these websites listed. These are not suggestions at all.
How rare? I mean, it is kind of sad about how the game price keep increases. They keep talking about how GTA 6 about to cost $100. If that's true, man, are you guys gonna pay it? You know people will pay that, man, for GTA 6, bro. They've been waiting for so long, they'll pay anything. Hopefully they don't do it, man.
Where is your hair? Let's find out. About 85% of people have naturally black hair, and it's the most common worldwide, and sometimes they can look like a very dark brown. And people with darker hair tend to have more hairs per square inch on their head, which is why it normally looks thick and full. Only about 11% of people have naturally brown or brunette hair, and people with brown hair normally have medium to thick hair, with very few having thin hair. Only about 2% of people have naturally blonde hair, and blondes normally have more hair strands on their head at about 150,000, while those with brown or black hair normally have 100,000. Only about 1% of people have naturally red hair, but in Scotland, over 13% of the people have red hair. And red hair is a recessive trait, which means that each parent has to have a copy of the mutated gene. Less than 1% of people have white or gray hair, and you actually can be born naturally like this, but it is extremely rare. Less than 1% of people have hair that is two different colors, also called hair heterochromia. And normally when someone has this, they have hairs that are brown, blonde, or red that are in the background of darker colored hair.
The world's rarest shapes. 9 protruding lips.
Okay. Got a full set right
8
there.
thin lips. 7 Morse plate lips.
I said they put some in their lips right here, that little plate.
6 cherub lips. 5 bee stung lips.
You got stung by a bee?
4 heart-shaped lips. 3 uneven lips.
Uneven? Okay, I can see a little bit.
2 Cupid's bow lips. 1 double-lobed lips.
Double-lobed lips?
Morbid Facts, Part 1. In 1992, 18-year-old John Thompson was home alone when he had both of his arms ripped off in a farming accident. But he still managed to get up and dial 911 with a pencil in his mouth. He miraculously survived and both of his arms were reattached. John says the only pain he really felt was when the exposed nerve hanging down his right side knocked into something. When Tatanisha Hedman waited for him to fall asleep before pouring kerosene on him and lighting him on fire. She later admitted to police that she intentionally set him ablaze because shooting him would have been too nice. In 2009, a man sued Pepsi when he was traumatized after finding a mouse in his Mountain Dew. But Pepsi attorneys said this was impossible since Mountain Dew would completely dissolve a mouse within 30 days. Pepsi ended up winning the case after proving that the can was purchased more than 70 days after it was manufactured.
How many just gonna gloss over that. A mouse
Games I almost
dissolves.
could not finish because of how much they disturbed me. You guys really liked the first list, so I'm back with another top 3. And remember, these are not necessarily the scariest, but they're the ones that left me the most uncomfortable. And according to my commenters, number 1 might be the most uncomfortable video I've ever uploaded. At number 3, we have Broken Needle. Compared to number 2 and number 1, this one isn't so bad, but the idea of a little girl who's just a head and a spinal cord telling her father to add more body parts to her is really disturbing to me. And the levels of the game are just finding people who have the right limbs, killing them, and then taking those body parts to attach to your daughter. Yeah, for some reason this one really got to me, and it's a short playthrough that's worth a watch. Number 2 is Mouthwashing. Of course I have to talk about this. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this game. It really needs no introduction at this point. And while the subject matter it covers isn't necessarily new, the way it tackles it is profound. If Ginny as a character does not make you uncomfortable, I don't really know what to tell you. Now, I do have a playthrough for all of these games on my channel, but again, warning for number 1, it's brutal. At number 1, we have Vile Exhumed. This game is exactly what its title says, vile. You're exploring the computer of one of the most evil characters I've ever seen in a game. Basically, a man becomes obsessed with this actress named Candy Corpse and commits unspeakable crimes. And the way this game presents the evidence to you, I had chills multiple times during this game.
Should I check those out, Seekers? You guys know I ain't into scary movies like that.
Did you know what was actually going on in this story? Because I bet you didn't. Apparently, Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is the most messed up, disturbing, horrifying movie ever made. I know you're all probably thinking, why? It's just a kid's film. Well, maybe it's not. As I go on, this gets progressively worse, so stick with me and make sure you share this video with someone. So first of all, apparently the movie was predictively programmed, with the first one coming out in 1971 and the remake in 2002. In the 1971 movie, there's talk of facial recognition and robots actually taking over people's jobs, which of course is happening now. With literal AI-controlled rooms and a number of different things which lead people to believe it was predictively programmed. Next up, there's a theory that it's actually connected to Batman. The company of the toothpaste called Smile is the same as the Joker's laughing gas in the movie, when people have seen a lot of connections between the two. Which leads on to the next one, that Willy Wonka is actually a serial killer. Weirdly and scarily kind of makes sense because of the context. Every child apparently representing a different sin that has to be purged. The way that he eliminates people, but wait till you hear this. He lures people in with marketing, eliminates them when they fail to meet the expectations, and then of course reward the most obedient one with ownership of the system. Which many people have been saying is pretty creepy and also sounds very familiar to things nowadays. When you think about it, some of it does make sense, some of it I'm really not too sure. Let me know your thoughts and let me know which one next.
You guys believe that theory?
Facts you probably didn't know. If your dog is sleeping like this on its side with its legs extended, it most likely feels safe and is at a comfortable temperature. If your dog licks you when you get a cut or a wound, he's actually trying to heal you. Your dog has antibacterial compounds in their saliva, so when they're licking your cut, they're trying to heal you faster. Dogs yawning. If your dog is yawning, it's not the same as a human yawn. Dogs yawn to reduce anxiety and stress and remain comfortable. Dogs can actually smell your emotions. Studies were done showing that dogs can feel a sense of both stress and fear along with some other happier emotions, and dogs tended to mirror that human's emotion.
Dinosaurs that were found in your country. Croatia.
Here we go.
Histriosaurus. Malawi. Maloisaurus. Norway. Hippacrosaurus.
Alright.
Germany. Archaeopteryx.
Flying one, alright.
USA.
T-Rex.
Utahraptor.
Yeah, I was wrong. Utahraptor.
Canada. Acrocanthosaurus.
Is that the T-Rex? Looks like it.
I'm gonna ruin your childhood, so listen in. So SpongeBob's address is 124 Conch Street, Bikini Bottom. But if you type it into Google, it will take you to this point at Little St. James's Island. And this is where it gets extremely weird. This is the exact spot of Jeffrey Epstein's island. This is so messed up, I don't even know what to think.
A zoo in Denmark wants you to donate your pets to the zoo so they can feed them to the predators. So the Aalborg Zoo says they're trying to mimic the natural food chain of the animals that are housed there. And to mimic this natural food chain, they're asking members of the public to donate their small pets to the zoo so they can then be put down and fed to the predators at the zoo. So in an FB post, the zoo said that if you have a healthy animal that needs to be given away for any reason, feel free to donate it to us. Apparently they're wanting animals like guinea pigs, chickens, and even horses to be donated to the zoo, but if you choose to donate a horse, there is a small catch. It can't have been treated for an illness within the past 30 days at least. Now, since this announcement, there has been some massive pushback against this zoo, which is kind of obvious, because what do you mean you want me to donate my pet horse so you can go and feed it to a tiger? But I have to defend the zoo a little bit. If you have an old guinea pig that's on the way out, I personally don't see a problem with donating it to the zoo. However, if you have completely healthy animals that you just don't want anymore for whatever reason, and you choose to donate them to this zoo, I see that as a problem, at least a little bit.
Were people still alive
give them up
inside
for
of the
adoption.
Titanic as it sank? Well, testimony from survivors actually suggests that yes, they were. Also, I cover a lot of morbid but interesting things on this page, so you should follow along. So as the Titanic sank, we know that part of it was vertical in the water as it went down. And experts have suggested that any of the air still left inside of the ship would have traveled to the top and trapped itself inside of a bubble. Which means that if people were trapped in that part of the ship, they could have survived as it was being brought down to the bottom of the ocean. But what's interesting is that the night it sank, some of the survivors said that 15 to 20 seconds after the ship went down, they heard an explosion under the water, which some people have suggested was actually the sound of the bubble imploding, similar to how the Titan submersible imploded. Basically, at a certain point, the ship would have gotten to a depth where the pressure on the outside was more than the pressure on the inside, and it would have crushed it. However, some experts say this is not possible. The ship was not sealed like the submersible was sealed, and therefore it could not have imploded that way. Regardless, we know that everyone who was left on that ship that night suffered a horrible fate, and if you're interested in more morbidly but interesting content, make sure to follow along.
The oldest baby in the world was just born, and even though it's just a few days old, it's already older than you and me. So back in the 90s, a baby in Ohio was frozen as an embryo. Well, just a few days ago, that embryo was born and is now a full-on baby. Now, the parents of this baby are 34 and 35, and the baby is technically 30 years old since it was frozen all the way back in 1994. So that means that the baby is only a few years younger than the parents. Technically speaking, if the baby wasn't frozen and it was born back in 1994, then the parents of this baby and the baby would have possibly spent a year or two at the same school together. Now, since the original woman who froze her embryos never exactly gave birth to this baby, the baby has two adopted parents right now, but the actual mother of the baby, the one whose embryos were frozen, is going to eventually get to meet this baby that has been in the works for 30 years. And she actually has a child who is 30 years old. So that child and this baby are siblings that are the same age, even though they have a 30-year age gap between them.
Dirty history facts
Crazy.
that school refuses to teach you. In ancient Greece, large peepees were a sign that someone was stupid or foolish, which is why so many statues like this one are depicted with a small one because it was a sign of intellect. Benjamin Franklin had a MILF fetish. Benjamin Franklin actually wrote a letter to a boy saying that older women were better because they're more experienced, and in that he said, while the face wrinkles, the other parts do not. In 17th century Europe, it was common practice for nannies to give a handy to a younger teenage boy in order to help him fall asleep.
She is responsible for the deaths of more people than the average serial killer. Ilse Koch and her husband Karl were responsible for the management and construction of the Buchenwald concentration camp in Germany. With this power, she enjoyed causing suffering. She and her husband created a rule that if any prisoner were to look at her directly, they would be executed on the spot. Because of this, she started to ride a horse through the concentration camp, dressed in very revealing clothing that was tight with very low cleavage, just so she could say, somebody looked at me, and she could have them executed. Meanwhile, people were probably looking at her because she looked crazy, but she also carried a whip and she would just hit people at random. Then when husband Karl was away, witnesses reported she would command officers to bring a selection of male soldiers to her mansion that was on site at the camp, then force them to remove their clothing and then lie in front of them in lingerie. If any of them looked at her or showed any signs of being excited, she would also have them executed. It just gets worse from here. She also insisted on having only teenage boys be her servants in her home, and each morning she would lay in bed in her nightgown and have them bring her breakfast, just so she could say, you looked at me, have them taken care of. Over time, she became bored with this game. this suffering so boring. So she creates a new hobby. One day she's riding through camp again on her horse, whipping people at random, when she notices that one of the prisoners has a tattoo. This prompts her to go to the camp's doctor so she could pressure him to start a new experiment, to see if there's any connection between tattoos and criminal behavior. A German inmate gave the testimony that all prisoners with tattoos had to report to the dispensary. Once the prisoners were examined, the ones with the most artistic tattoos were then killed with lethal injection. Ultimately, there was over 800 prisoners that went through this, just so the desired pieces of skin with tattoos could be skinned off their bodies and preserved. She would then decorate with the preserved skin, and also use it to make lampshades. I also read that she used the skin to cover books and to make gloves. She would also give out these pieces of skin as gifts. In 1942, Ilse and her husband were taken to court for misusing camp funds, but also for not following protocol with prisoners. You know it's bad when the Nazis themselves, even at the time, said, you took it too far. For more horrific history, please subscribe to my YouTube channel as we unbox more of these cases.
That was a disturbing case.
Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I'm sure you would notice if you had the bodies of your 3 dead best friends in your back garden. It was the 7th of January in Kansas City, Missouri, when 3 friends went to another friend's house to watch a football game. The men were Clayton McGeeney, Ricky Johnson, and David Harrington, and the friend they went to see was Jordan Willis. The guys regularly hung out. They were literally best friends, and they were really excited for the Kansas City Chiefs game because, as you can see, they were all big fans. Ricky was a father of 3 and loved spending time with his kids. He loved nothing more. Clayton was described as a great person by loved ones, and David was a really lovely guy. He was actually a Little League baseball coach. It was actually David's mum, Jennifer, that started to get really worried because after he went over to the house, she just didn't hear of him for days. Maybe it would have been normal for a few hours, but yeah, not full days with no communication. And it was very weird because all 3 men stopped communicating at the exact same time and hadn't spoke to their family or friends. It was Clayton's fiance that finally ended up taking matters into her own hands and just driving over there to see what the hell was going on. She ended up driving over to Jordan's house and literally banging on his front door, desperate for any kind of answers. But eerily, there was no reply. What the hell had happened at this house? She then went round the back of the home, and that's when her whole world was turned upside down. She wanted to see if she could obviously get a better look through a window or something, or get any idea what had gone on. When she entered the back garden, she was absolutely horrified. One of the men was dead on the back porch, and the 2 other were deceased in the back garden. They were all frozen. As you could see, it was really snowy at that point. So she rang police and they raced to the scene, and it was only once police actually arrived that they realised somebody was in the house. Jordan allegedly then came out of his bedroom and shortly after lawyered up. He initially claimed that he had no idea that those bodies were there. He initially stated he didn't usually use the back door, he just used the front door, so he had no idea that the bodies were in the garden. However, the men's cars were still parked at the house, so I feel like that makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. It's also alleged that multiple people had tried to call this Jordan and ask where on earth their loved ones were, and he was just not answering. Police originally ruled out foul play and stated that this guy had no motive to want to hurt his friends. However, things have changed. Jordan was fairly recently arrested along with another man. The deceased men's autopsies revealed they had illegal substances in their systems. Police alleged that Jordan supplied these men with substances, along with a man named Blade Brown. That was obviously a nickname. His real name is Ivory Carson. Text messages allegedly reveal that Ivory had provided some substances to these men. 2 witnesses also allegedly reported that Jordan had been seen passing around a dinner plate with substances on it to these men at his house. Both men are currently being held in jail.
It's crazy, man. You just going over to a friend's house to watch the football game. Something like that could happen, man. Gotta be safe out here, seekers. If you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker seeking the truth. I greatly appreciate the support. Make sure you guys like this video. Comment down below. Don't forget to follow me on my social medias. You guys gonna catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.